Right, this is going to be the most important video that you're going to watch in this market. And the reason for that is because in this video, I'm going to be showing you how you can spot if you're in a bear market or a bull market. I'm going to show you exactly how you can spot that and why it's so important. Because ladies and gents, if you don't get this right in this market, you are going to prematurely exit your positions. You're going to be out of the game. And when that happens, you stand to potentially lose out on a lot of the profits that people like myself will continue to enjoy in this market. And you might even start revenge trading because you know that you've sacrificed making a lot of profits and you're not going to be happy about it when you watch everyone else living out in the Hollywood Hills and driving Ferraris. So this is very, very important. And what am I talking about here? Well, going back to the previous video, shout out to those of you who are regular subscribers, those of you who hit up the like button. Going back to the previous videos, what I always talk about in these videos is how a Bitcoin market typically tends to top out. And the way it happens at the end of a massive parabolic rise is that things get crazier and crazier until eventually it's gotten way too crazy and it has a massive blow off top, as you can see on screen at the moment, where the price literally explodes upwards with more and more intensity every single time until eventually it can no longer be sustained and the price has to start crashing down with equal intensity. This right now is not something that we've seen in our current market. We've consolidated sideways, we did not continue to set explosive all-time highs with our current rally, and we started to dip down. Now, Bitcoin does typically have very scary mini bear markets while it's in a massive bull cycle, and the final blow off top is usually exactly that, a blow off top, where things have reached their maximum level of intensity, their maximum level of extremities, if that's a word. And the price really starts shooting upwards, and then we get that big top out. Now again, that's not what we saw in this current top pattern, where the price has now dropped by 50%. Doesn't mean that this is not a bear market, but it certainly means that this is not how they typically start for the Bitcoin market. And the reason that I think this is very important is that alone is nearly enough proof to tell me that this is not the beginning of a bear market. And if it's not the beginning of a bear market, that means I'm now well positioned to know that I should not be selling my Bitcoin yet. I don't want to sell my Bitcoin if this bull market is not over in a macro cycle. If we really zoom out, I don't want to be the guy selling my Bitcoin right now, because that means if Bitcoin is going to pass that previous all-time high at $65,000, what happens when Bitcoin passes an all-time high? Usually doubles and then some, usually does something absolutely spectacular, absolutely amazing. And the reason that that happens is because there's so much fear of missing out, so much hype in these markets. And we know that when we have extreme emotions on one side, they have to repeat on the other side. So getting massive drawdowns that are actually very scary and very intense is extremely natural for the market. This is something that happens quite a lot. And if we've had this without even forming a pattern that typically indicates that Bitcoin is about to top out, that to me is a sign that this cycle is just not done yet. That to me is a sign that we're not done trending upwards yet. And so I don't want to be the guy selling my Bitcoin down here at 30K, 40K or whatever if I'm expecting Bitcoin to eventually end up topping 60 and going significantly higher, because that literally means from here, if Bitcoin doubles the previous all-time high, I stand to make a 4 times gain. And meanwhile, of course, you guys already know inside of the VIP group, which by the way has just hit 1,200 members. Shout out to those of you who are inside that group. If you guys are in there already, you already know that I'll be ripping my trades to make even more Bitcoin, because my goal here is to keep riding the Bitcoin waves up, but to accumulate more Bitcoin. You know, if I asked you right now how much Bitcoin do you have and you were smart, you would say not enough. And the truth is, we never have enough Bitcoin. If Bitcoin's going to go from 65K to 130K, it's going to double. If you've got one Bitcoin, you will make another 65 grand. But if you've made more Bitcoins during that time, you stand to really, really multiply what you've gained. And at the end of the day, as traders, that's what we're aiming for. We're aiming for wealth creation. We don't have millions in the bank that we're just trying to grow slowly. We're trying to go from nothing to something, from small amounts to something very, very large. And that's exactly what the goal of this YouTube channel is. So taking it back to the idea of spotting a bear market, they usually do happen with those kind of blow off tops where things get way more intense, way more crazy. Everyone in their nan even is telling you about how to buy Bitcoin and all that. And I just don't think that we've reached that stage yet. Another thing that I think is very important is that when we are in a massive bull cycle and it's going to come to an end, it usually doesn't end very shortly after breaking the previous all-time high. We set the previous all-time high at $20,000, and we only broke it in December. At the time of me recording, we're coming towards the end of May, so we're only about 5-6 months into this bull cycle, and that to me is just way too early for this thing to end. You know, Bitcoin topped out at 60K for the first time maybe around April. I mean, that's just 4 months later. 4 or 5 months later after breaking the previous all-time high. You know, usually when that happens, especially in an asset like Bitcoin or something that is maturing, it'll take at least a year for the market cycle to finish. That's not to say that it will take a year for Bitcoin right now, but when you consider the facts that that's how it's been many times in the past. And I think most importantly, that Bitcoin is maturing. It's maturing in terms of more money entering the space, more mature money entering the space. We've got institutions, we've got big hedge funds and so on. We've got big players coming into the space now. These things slow down a trend. The fact that a market is maturing should typically mean that it's going to slow down. It's going to reel in a little bit, and that means these things actually get a little bit more stretched out. When you consider other factors like inflation, all the fundamental reasons that you perhaps fell in love with Bitcoin for in the first place, these reasons have not gone away. They're getting more intense. And again, when you couple this with the fact that on a technical level, we have not painted a typical top pattern for Bitcoin, instead we painted something very sensible. Ladies and gents, these market cycles, they don't end with a sensible pattern. They end with extreme euphoria, like, just a Ferrari going 200 miles down the highway, crashing into a concrete block. That's how these markets end. We didn't do that. We consolidated sideways, we had very healthy distribution, and the markets now dropped down. This, to me, has every sign of just being something that is about to continue a bull market on a macro scale. You might not see that these words are true next week or even next month, but give it a little bit of time, and this is where I strongly feel the market is headed. And again, the reason that this is so important is that if you don't pay attention to these things, and actually you prematurely leave the market, you do stand to then re-enter at a much higher level than where you sold. I know that there's a lot of poor souls that have now sold in the $30,000 range and already would have made more money if they just held onto their Bitcoin. And imagine how much more intense that's going to get if Bitcoin does manage to go above 65,000 and then doubles. You've got people who, perhaps have entered Bitcoin at 40,000, sold at 35, and they'll end up rebuying at 80,000. That makes you the epitome of a terrible trader. What we're trying to go for here is buying low and selling high, not buying high and selling low and then buying even higher again. That's absolutely not what we're going for, but unfortunately that is what a lot of people tend to fall into. This was a very important macro type video to get your head in the right space if you're not already there. And if you found it helpful or anything like that, well, actually what I've got for you is an entire video breaking down for you how to trade from the beginner's steps. This is how to trade from my perspective. I'm all about the wealth creation, trying to turn small amounts into large amounts. And if you want to see how I've been able to achieve that, really get an insight into the beginning stages of that, then you can click the I in the top left, top right, wherever it is, and you can watch that video right there. It's made for you as a beginner. If you want to get a little bit more serious about this, perhaps you want to learn everything there is to know about trading from A to Z and watch me trading in real time, Four Flies VIP is the place to be. And you already know how to reach out. It's with the first link in the description down below. I'm out here in the Hollywood Hills today. It's an absolutely stunning view. I thought that was downtown. It's not. Those of you who live here will know exactly what I'm looking at. Beautiful place. It is still a bull market. Things are still good, in my opinion, and you've just had my take. Hope you've had a great day. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit up the likes and subscribe. Thank you all very much for 90,000 subscribers. We're well on our way to 100. This is the most focused, dedicated channel to the real analysis in this market. We're not about Moonboy $1 million jack-off projections. That's not what this channel is about. This is about being a real trader, positioning ourselves to keep making money, doing it safely, and creating wealth. That's what this is about. Not investing, not trying to aim for $1 million Bitcoin or anything crazy like that. It's all about the brutal realities of the trading game. If that's something that sounds interesting to you, then you're in the right place. Thank you all for tuning in.